The day is finally here. The Vancouver Canucks have announced that Henrik and Daniel Sedin have been promoted to co-presidents of hockey operations in the Vancouver Canucks organization, and that Ryan Johnson has been named the 13th general manager in franchise history. Ryan Johnson, a guy who paid his dues in the Abbotsford Canucks as the general manager over there, and of course, as a player once upon a time. Former players on both ends here. Obviously, the Sedins were legends. They're Hall of Famers. They are the leading Canucks all-time in overall points. Ryan Johnson was a Canuck at one point, but I'll say that I remember Ryan Johnson and his playing days much more for being a guy who tried to give it to Campoli, who inevitably just got it out. Burrows held the puck back in, shoots, scores! We already know the story. It was 2011, it was Game 7, it was Round 1 against Chicago. But the Canucks have made an announcement that nobody is really surprised to see. We all thought this was coming. We all had an idea based off of the reporting. This could have very well been Evan Gold's tweet, announcing him as the GM, but no, things changed very drastically over the past 48 to 72 hours, it seems. And I wanted to dive into some of the comments made by the Sedins and just what this signals for the overall organization. Thomas Drance went out there and posted this, that Francesco Aquilini did not answer any questions, but he delivered a prepared statement in advance of the club introducing the Sedins as co-presidents and Ryan Johnson as the GM. What a fearless leader we have here in Vancouver. Now, in order to get the most holistic view of what's been said and how people are responding, we gotta go over onto the Canucks subreddit, because all the info is over here. Francesco Aquilini ended up saying that Henrik and Daniel Sedin made the final call on hiring Ryan Johnson as GM. They chose RJ over external candidates. Now, this aligns with what we had seen coming out of the media and some of these reporters that supposedly, even though Evan Gold was the main guy, that was the main guy from up top. Henrik and Daniel Sedin weren't actually a part of that up top group of people until very late into the conversation. So once they were on board to get a bigger role, they made the ultimate choice, and they were like, no, we'd go with the guy that we know. We'll go with the guy that we're more familiar with, the guy whose philosophy we know aligns with what we want. And that's Ryan Johnson. So I can understand there being some weariness saying, hey, the Canucks want to hold back from hiring guys that can bring a fresh new perspective into the organization, and you can debate whether or not the Sedins and Ryan Johnson are a part of the same cloth that has been disappointing in Vancouver over the past few years, but I do think that they deserve the benefit of the doubt. They were in the AHL doing their thing. The Sedins were in a player development role, primarily working with the Abbotsford guys. There deserves to be an opportunity for people whom I think a lot of Canucks fans admire, they respect, and they see the work that these people have put in to get to where they are today. The Sedins, the epitome of hard work, they're going to go out there and beat the prospects at the grouse grind. Ryan Johnson paid his dues. He's up here now. I understand the perspective of having wanted to have gone with a guy like Evan Gold, who is a very smart individual, but I'm not pissed off at this. I like this. Let's go out there and read some of the other comments and quotes. So this was making the rounds here as well. Reporter asks a hardball question about the owner's tendency to meddle. I didn't recognize the voice of whom it was who asked this question, but the person essentially says, hey, Canucks fans have expressed disappointment with the ownership because the ownership seems to meddle. How much autonomy are you going to have? And Daniel Sedin immediately says 100% autonomy. To which Henrik then responds and he says that, yeah, we will have 100% autonomy. When they asked us when we want to be a part of this journey, that was the idea that they pitched to us. Sure, that will be the case, 100% autonomy. And that aligns, of course, with what it is that I think a lot of Canucks fans wanted to see out of this team. I will say, though, the only caveat to that is the fact that Trevor Linden, 10 years ago, also claimed to have had complete autonomy from ownership, but perception says otherwise in Vancouver. He said 10 years ago, we had complete autonomy from ownership to make the decisions we needed to make. So we'll see whether or not the complete autonomy thing actually continues. Part of the reason that we'll believe it continues is if the rebuild happens slowly. Henrik Sedin says to do it as fast as possible, we have to be very careful and go slow. Yeah, Henrik, you're kind of debating us, man, to do this as fast as possible, to start out the conversation on the rebuild. Nah, sorry, we're actually just going to go slow. Oh, Henrik, the jokester that you are. Ryan Johnson said this: to put any type of timeline on a rebuild is unfair to the process. It's more about creating and building the environment first. A safe environment where players can improve, make mistakes, and have resources. We're not going to race through it. I love that. It contrasts very heavily to what the Canucks were doing before, getting guys that by all accounts seem to have not been all too welcoming and great in the locker room. Cough, cough, all those American dudes. Sorry Demko, sorry Besser. But safe environment, the players can improve, make mistakes. That speaks exactly to what Max Sasson said earlier on Donnie and Dolly, how the Canucks towards the end of the year were all of a sudden a lot more welcoming and you could be yourself and you can practice what you preach and improve, and you weren't really afraid to put yourself out there. There's a lot of personality things that I think a lot of fans will be paying attention to over the next little while. Daniel Sedin spoke out on Elias Pettersson. The one message to him is preparation. Okay, not surprised. Unfortunately, I don't think we seem to have had an update as to whether or not the Sedins and Pettersson have a great relationship, but by all accounts, it seemed like they didn't really have one over the past little while, so hopefully that is going to continue. Daniel recalls also, when they arrived in Vancouver, the Canucks were the #1 team in the league in terms of community involvement and how they need to get back to that point. Yeah, I agree with that as well. More things for the community, more players out in the wild, maybe not in the wild, but doing events, meeting people, signing autographs, lots of great things the Canucks have done over the years. And a lot of that, ever since COVID, it stopped. I mean, yeah, sure, we had Elias Pettersson and Michael Bublé singing to the Canucks kids, but like other than that, I don't really recall too much compared to the days beforehand. And a lot of that has to do with the leadership in the room. Oh yeah, Quinn Hughes always leaving these events early in Vancouver and Minnesota. Okay, sorry, I don't want to make this about Quinn Hughes again, but a part of me feels like I need to. The Sedins, of course, were pivotal people when it comes to actually being a part of the community, just having a good time, making sure the fans were taken care of on and off the ice. Lots to love out of what the Sedins were able to bring. And if all of this and the positive energy that they brought to the Canucks as players can continue into their time as co-presidents, then I'll be pretty stoked. They've got 5 years, man. Apparently ownership knows it's 5 years, and they're not going to try to rush it, at least hopefully not. That's the ideal scenario, right? So with that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Sedins being named co-presidents of hockey ops and Ryan Johnson being named the 13th general manager in the history of the Vancouver Canucks? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.